What if I told you that a treatment program could bill your insurance about $3,000 a day for your loved one's care? You'd never see that bill. You would never approve it. You'd never know it happened until the benefits ran out. It's not a hypothetical. This is really how the addiction treatment industry has operated for years. And the people that are supposed to stop it have largely looked the other way. I'm Dr. Angela McMahon, and I have spent a decade inside of the addiction treatment compliance world. Today, I'm going to walk you through exactly how insurance exploitation works in this industry, who does it, how they do it, and who lets them. So I have my points, my talking points every time, my 5 points, how treatment billing actually works. So I'm not a biller myself. However, I work with several billers. I have quite a few that I really just trust very much and think that just very highly of them. And they are oftentimes my resources regarding insurance questions. So insurance reimburses programs directly, not through the client or resident. With that being said, I do know some programs that have said that, like, I think the Blues send the check directly to the client. And sometimes that can cause some problems when they see how massive the amount is and they have cashed it themselves and not given money. And I have heard about that happening also. But for the most part, the insurance reimburses the program directly. Programs submit claims daily for services rendered. Residential rates, they can vary widely, $500, $3,000 a day, depending on the level of care and network status. I've referenced in a couple of my other videos, the Montana case, the Montana commissioner. I saw him on television not long ago talking about how he is clawing back money from California programs where they were charging $9,000 a day. They were coming out to Montana. He said in their white vans, picking up Native Americans, getting them insurance, charging $9,000 a day. When the benefits ran out, they kicked them to the curb. No place to go, according to him. That's really sad to me. Really deeply sad. But $500 to $3,000 a day is extreme as well. So $500 on the lower end, that's usually typically a certification program like outpatient. $3,000 might be residential. Are you going to get the full $3,000 if you bill for $3,000? From what I understand, most billers tell me that you don't always get that amount. You might get like half that amount, $1,500. That's still pretty good if someone is going to be there for 30 days and you get paid that each day that they're there. And in California, licensed residential treatment programs, detox res, typically they house about 6 clients. So if you have 6 times that amount, pretty good. So yeah, it depends on the level of care and the network status. So out of network programs can still bill significantly higher in network than in network, sorry. So out of network bill significantly higher than in network. And again, the patient never sees the bill. It goes directly to the program and insurers. So benefits can be exhausted without the family even knowing it until it's too late, from what I've been told. Point number 2, urine drug screen exploitation. Urine drug screens are routine in SUD treatment. They have to be clinically appropriate when used correctly. So you need to monitor if the client or resident, first of all, if they're taking their current meds, because that will show up. And if also what's in their system. Like if you have a point of care cup, if you're using a cup that can give you instant results on site, you can bill for that. It used to be where facilities were billing so much money, like $1,200 each time. Now I'm hearing the amount is much lower depending on the organization, the UA company that they're working with, urine analysis. It can be very different, but it's still a billable option in many cases. And it's also very revealing. So it's definitely needed. In order to be able to read the results on site, you have to have a CLIA waiver. So that means that you would go contact the California Department of Public Health and apply for a CLIA waiver. And then you can collect read on site. The reading on site is the important piece here, and then send out to the lab for confirmation. Without that, you just collect and send to the lab for confirmation. There's no billing. So at least not from the organization standpoint. Maybe the laboratory can bill, but not the organization in that case. So it's there's an incentive to get CLIA beyond using it for clinical purposes. And also, each panel on the screen can be billed separately. This is what I've learned. A comprehensive screening test for 12 plus substances can generate hundreds of dollars in some cases per test. And so on average, facilities are testing 1 to 3 times per week, sometimes more, depending. You have to have a clinical reason as to why you're doing it. If you're suspicious of a relapse, that would be an indicator to do it. So there are different reasons why this can happen. And also money can be one of them. So programs billing for daily screens on every client, whether clinically indicated or not. So that definitely happens, but the markup between what a screen costs to process and what is billed to insurance is extraordinary at times. This is one of the most commonly identified fraud patterns in federal SUD cases. There's a history here of issues with this. It goes way back to when I even worked in pain management before I worked in this industry. There's a big history here. One of the things when I worked in pain management was if you gave someone a UA, urine analysis test, and it came back where the drugs weren't in their system, what does that mean? Why aren't they taking it? Are they selling it? What's happening? But that's another story. Patients don't know what's being tested oftentimes or how often. They don't know what your policy is, how often you're supposed to be doing this. This is a policy, though, that is supposed to be overseen by the Department of Healthcare Services. Like, this is a policy that they require to be written. Joint Commission, same thing, accredited programs. So, most states require this to happen. But how it's happening and how often should be based on clinical decisions, not financial decisions. But can you see how easy it might be to put it in the box of clinical? It's pretty easy to be like, oh, I thought maybe they relapsed, or oh, we need to test them because X, Y, and Z. So there are ways to make sure you get that test. But again, goes back and forth. It's a very useful source of information. Also, you have to send the instant results out to the lab. You can't rely on them. Sometimes those cups are wrong. And not having the CLIA waiver and just collecting and sending directly to the lab, you run the risk of not providing an accurate treatment plan. So suppose, because you're relying on these cups to be accurate, the default is that they're accurate. But again, you send for confirmation in case it's not. But you need to quickly develop a treatment plan for a client. And depending on what shows up in that test can help you determine what steps you need to take. So there's benefit again, but there's also room for exploitation. Point 3, levels of care and upcoding. There are different levels of care reimbursement for different rates. Detox reimburses higher than residential and residential higher than outpatient. Upcoding means that billing for a higher level of care than was actually provided. So not so sure that I really don't know a lot about how this is because, okay, let me just say it. Sometimes clients go into a residential treatment program at a partial hospital level of care, which the Department of Healthcare Services does not recognize as a level of care, although it's oftentimes will be acceptable by a payer because it falls under the category of day treatment when you initially, I'm giving you way too many details, when you initially create the application. So, but with that being said, sometimes the resident might not have residential coverage, but they have PHP coverage. And so in order to get them the help that they need, you would put them into the program at a PHP level of care. And that's great if you're giving them the help that they need. If you're doing it to exploit financially and it's not honest, then that's a problem. But I will say that I have seen situations where DHCS understands as long as you're providing the level of care that they're admitting at. So they're admitting at the appropriate level of care that you're licensed for because you're treating them that way, but it's being billed as PHP because they don't have the residential. That's the way I understand it. So could that be exploited? Maybe. It's complicated. California has a lot of things that are complicated like that. Like they don't offer LOC level of care designation for medical 3.7 because it's not a medical facility. So, there are some things that get a little complicated, and in complication means that there's gray area, room to manipulate if someone is a manipulator. I'm in the best interest of the client, whatever the client needs, because again, life or death here. This is a life or death situation in many cases. So we need to do what's right, best practice. So a clinical documentation manipulated just to justify higher billing. That happens quite a bit. I've seen this happen. I've heard about this happening. And so that's healthcare fraud. In order to confirm that it's healthcare fraud, though, that it's actively going on in an organization that is actively providing services, it does require an investigation to figure this out. What is actually happening? That takes time. So sometimes the accountability part may never come, or it may come years later, and the operators are still functioning. They're still providing these services because we are innocent until proven guilty, which is absolutely true. However, when found guilty, was there any damage caused prior if found guilty? And right now, I feel like the industry is in this place where not a lot of people are being found guilty. Quite a few are. Some are on hold or being investigated. Trials are coming up that I'm actually planning on attending. So, kind of in this weird area where we're trying to figure that out. But from my perspective, there's been a ton of evidence to support that there is a lot of misconduct going on across the nation. And I think that families need to be aware that, and I say this in every video, low quality programs and high quality programs, the admission staff can look and sound the same. So how do you decipher between a low quality program, meaning someone who's just interested in a head on a bed for financial gain, versus someone who is interested in making a profit because they need to survive, they want to have a nice living, but they genuinely are doing things the right way or trying, and they genuinely care about the clients and their families. And honestly, I would throw the industry in there. The industry, it needs a new reputation. Reputation's kind of damaged, and that doesn't help when you're dealing with a population that's already stigmatized highly. But, this is my one-stop shop, my one-stop place for you to come and see all the different issues that have been going on in this industry. So I haven't really found a place that covers all of the different fraud misconduct across the nation. So I thought I would create it myself. So let's move on finally to point number 4. Who is supposed to stop this? Insurance companies. They have fraud detection units that are often reactive, not proactive. This has been an issue. A lot of the consequences are reactive, not proactive. Well, what could change? What could make this proactive? I think that there are some gaps in the laws that I've identified, and I've even spoken to some legislators about what this could look like if there was change. And again, there are a lot of really quality, good programs. I've licensed and accredited so many of them, almost up to 100. And those programs will survive. They'll be just fine, probably happier, and their voices will be heard. They are also victims in this as well. Like, they need their voices heard. They should not be clumped in with the bad players. So then there's the state insurance commissioners. I mentioned Montana, the regulator insurers, not the providers directly. So state insurance commissioners. Then there are the state regulatory boards, like our agencies, like in the state of California, Department of Healthcare Services, CHES licenses programs, but does not audit the billing practices. Should they? Would they? Are they capable? Do they have enough staff? Would that be helpful? I think we need to figure it out. So then there's, the federal oversight of the Medicare, Medicaid billing, Medi-Cal, HHS, OIG. Then here we go, the FBI and the IRS. Honestly, typically when the FBI and the IRS go to a facility, the state agency, licensing agency, as well as the DEA often show up if, it's a provider that is providing DEA services, which most of them do. So they all come. And I've spoken about this in another video. Like, they all come at once. They hit every single site at once, even personal homes at times. And it's scary. I know several people in this industry that have been impacted by a raid. Not once. I myself know I worked for a couple of programs that have had this happen, and it is scary. It is scary. You don't know what to say to people after it happens. Like, are you part of the problem? Are you helping people? Are you harming people? Like, what box do you put yourself in? And if you tell someone, I worked at a program, the FBI came, they get scared. The normal reaction is typically to be scared. Most people are scared of the FBI. So it is sad when it's become normalized and you're not the problem, but yet you're impacted. That breaks my heart. Okay, so point number 5, what changed and what hasn't? Mental Health Parity and Addiction Equity Act requires equal coverage for both SUD and mental health. Expanded insurance coverage created expanded opportunity for fraud. The ACA dramatically increased the number of insured people seeking SUD treatment. More coverage meant more billing, which could lead to more exploitation, which in my research it has. So federal enforcement has increased, but it can take years, like I said before. The structural incentives that enabled exploitation have changed. Good and bad, good and bad, pros and cons to that. So the money flowing through addiction treatment is extraordinary. When extraordinary money meets inadequate oversight, the result is pretty predictable. It's not about every program doing this. There are programs doing excellent work and billing honestly, like I mentioned, but the ones that aren't have operated with remarkable impunity for a long time. That is changing. Federal enforcement is accelerating. The cases I cover in this channel are visible evidence of that. So I will be going to a couple of these federal cases coming up live. I will be there in person. And so stand by, because I think this is a topic that needs to be known. More people need to know about it. It's scary for several reasons, because I'm talking about fraud. I'm talking about FBI. I'm talking about a population that has a nasty stigma attached to it. Someone's got to stand up for these people. And I'm going to try. I'll do whatever I can, hopefully it helps. Who knows? But I'm doing the best I can. And thank you so much for watching. And I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you.